Mary Magdalene, the contemplative, the penitent, the apostle's apostle. Biblical woman of mystery. Throughout history, Mary Magdalene has captivated the imagination of artists, philosophers, theologians, and Merovingian dynastic theorists, and the legends she inspired live and evolve today as they have for 2 millennia. These legends inspired designer Dwayne Wisdom to conceive the Legends of Mary Magdalene medal, a creation unlike any other piece of jewelry anywhere in the world. The Legends of Mary Magdalene medal, in one stunning image, projects the most powerful aspects of this amazing woman's life, most prominently the miracle of the red egg. To see this breathtakingly powerful work of art, go to rosettagrams.com or where'smyjewelry.com or search Facebook for the Legends of Mary Magdalene medallion page. The Legends of Mary Magdalene medal, available in sterling silver, 12-karat gold filled, and 14-karat gold from where'smyjewelry.com.
We at The Invisible Hand and LibertyCatPress.com would like to thank those whose donations have made our work possible. If you would like to donate, please send money via PayPal to Tracy, that's Tracy, at quintessentialpublications.com, or send an email to the same address to make other arrangements. That's Tracy at quintessentialpublications.com. And thank you again for your support. Hello, we're back on The Invisible Hand. I'm Tracy Twyman. And now to our guest today. James Evan Pilato is the editor of several websites, including MediaMonarchy.com, FoodWorldOrder.com, and CyberspaceWar.com. He also has a podcast called Media Monarchy and contributes regularly to the videos put out by CorbettReport.com. Here's Mr. Pilato. So, James, go ahead and tell us about what you do. I know you have various websites, and you have at least one podcast, I know, and you have a radio show. Go ahead and tell me all about it.
all those various things. It all started probably 4 or 5 years ago. I started Media Monarchy as just a news blog. And when I moved to Portland, I got in touch and got hooked up with the Portland Radio Authority, which is praradio.org. Mm-hmm. And I've been doing the live show out of there for almost 4 years. And it's basically, I use the website kind of as the script for the show. So the things that I've posted to the site throughout the week, that's then what I go over on Fridays. And about just over a year ago, I believe it was February 2009, I started a site called foodworldorder.com to just focus on all the sort of food and health issues that, became obvious were going to become more and more important. And then I even, a few months after that, started cyberspacewar.com just to follow all the hack attacks and threats of, internet censorship, technology, space, all of those kind of stories. That's what's tough. I think, you're probably in the same boat like a lot of us, where you're a one-man show, but you want to do so many different things. You want to cover so many different topics.
Right.
And last night when we were even just kind of chatting, doing kind of a preset for this, I sent you the link of those videos that I do with James Corbett of CorbettReport.com. We do a weekly 10-minute YouTube video series called The New World Next Week. And, and that's just been another great way to kind of get the information out. For me, the videos are definitely something, that I can send my parents, literally. Because I know they're never going to listen to a weekly 2-hour podcast.
Sure.
But when you put it into kind of a 10-minute, bite-sized form, we basically try and cover 3 stories, each week and give the documentation. And it's kind of it's not scripted necessarily, but again, I think it's just a more succinct way to try and hit those folks again who, like parents or other relatives or friends who, aren't going to listen to a 2-hour show.
Right. So the perspective you're coming from with Media Monarchy, I mean, I know that the stuff you cover is sort of New World Order related stuff, for lack of a better term, things about government intrusion in our lives and the consolidation of government globally, and civil liberties issues and things of that nature. Now, Media Monarchy, what does that mean? Is that a reference to the sort of corporate control of media?
I think it ultimately worked out to be that. Honestly, the name was created beforehand back east, which is where, my girlfriend and I, who lived together here in Portland for 5 years, she and I met in West Virginia, where we're from, at college. And we were both, communication majors and theater minors. And I played in a band, and we were always just thinking of and writing down cool names that could either be used for band names or album names or project titles. Sure. Media Monarchy was something actually that my girlfriend came up with that, I had scribbled down in the list of other, cool names. Uh-huh. So when I first started the blog, I named it that, and it initially wasn't going to be a news and anti-New World Order website. I think when I started it, I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do with it. I was probably going to do something, media related, more about maybe music and film. And I was the program director at my community radio station. Uh-huh. So I was kind of the music guy. So that kind of made more sense. But basically the long and short of it, when I moved to Portland and didn't have a job, didn't really have any friends, it kind of grew into the news blog, that it's turned into at this point. Because basically for me, it was 9/11 that got me into this kind of research. Mm-hmm. It was my own natural question, probably 6-8 months after 9/11, if that long, where just always being a media junkie, and to this day, I love film and music and all of that. My own natural question was, hey, what's the video look like of the plane hitting the Pentagon? Uh-huh. So we had seen the towers a million times, and it was just, oh yeah, what's that one look like? And all you had to do at that point was search that to discover, we don't know what that looks like. Because this was, they hadn't even put out the few little frames yet that still, of course, showed nothing.
Right.
So meanwhile, while I was the radio programmer and played in a band and was doing sound design for theater, meanwhile, on my own, I was kind of awakening to all of this and starting to research 9/11, which, of course, once you start looking into 9/11, then you're going to look into Oklahoma City, and then you're going to look into JFK, and then you're going to look into all these other events, that are essentially false flag events used to escalate the agenda. So as we can see right now, regardless of which, front man they put up for whichever, the two main parties, it somehow seems that things don't really change and the agenda keeps going forward. So now, we're still almost 9 years into the Afghanistan war, blamed on, 9/11 is the blank check that's let that happen. Mm-hmm. The war is still going on. The spying still going on. All these things still go on, and yet people somehow every 4 or 8 years vote those bums out and get some other bums in, and one side goes to sleep, and then the other side kind of gets, they get energized.
Yeah, so for people who don't, haven't really looked into 9/11 or any of these other issues, they might not understand. But the fact is that 9/11 is just one portal you could take. When you start looking at major events in modern history, and you sort of peel back the layers and discover some of the hidden causes for things that happened, it takes you into this whole world where, okay, say for instance with 9/11, once you discover that it looks like there's some sort of setup involved, that you're not being told the whole story, and maybe elements of the government were intentionally involved in it, well, then you have to ask, why would that be? Why would anyone really want to kill 3,000 Americans? What possible agenda would be that important? And so then you start learning about geopolitics and monetary policy and the manipulation of various commodities for global control. Then you discover basically that there's this oligarchy, essentially, that is really behind the scenes of all of the major events in the world right now. And it's not necessarily one group of people, but it's a class of people that we're not involved in, and it's all happening in a level that we have no way of influencing, really. And so I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I'm just trying to say,
no, you're absolutely right, and that's the thing. I think while I was researching it, on my own, meanwhile, like I said, kind of still being the music guy, it was something I kind of kept to myself. because it was something I was just kind of discovering, and I didn't want to be someone to just start flying off the handle and talking about all this stuff. And you'll find, like we were saying, that you'll find a lot of the same players throughout the years that, unfortunately, how long have we been dealing with folks like Henry Kissinger and Brzezinski and these guys that, again, we see, the frontman may change, but somehow you find these, the same kind of cast of characters still behind, whichever team is supposedly winning at the moment.
I know, yeah, it's frightening when you start looking into a modern day event and then you find the same people behind that were seemingly involved in the Kennedy assassination and things like that. And then you feel like a nut at a certain point. You're just like, I can't even talk about this because everyone will think I'm crazy. But reality is weirder than fiction. I mean, here's the thing I've noticed is that when I started this sort of research, I didn't get head over heels into it because a lot of the information was coming from websites and books by, self-published authors and allegedly declassified government documents that I didn't have the means to be able to verify whether or not this was a legitimate document or not. But in the past 10 years, it's all come out of the closet so that all you have to do is go to, the Times of London and the Guardian and the New York Times and all of these mainstream papers. Just go there every day and you're going to find information that's verifying this point of view that basically there is an oligarchy trying to control the world, trying to consolidate power, and it's kind of like basically a global corporation that's forming, a privately owned corporation that wants to they feel like they own us all, that we are their slaves, and they want to control every single aspect of our lives.
And every day, yes, we can read all those things in the mainstream papers. They won't come out, they don't come out necessarily and say, yes, there's a handful of families and oligarchs who pretty much run the world, but they they'll put things out that, again, what I think amateur, researchers and citizen journalists then go do the work and kind of put it together in the context and subtext that the mainstream media doesn't provide. And I find sites like historycommons.org, which originally started just kind of hosting what they called the complete 9/11 timeline. And what they do is just lay out the timeline, and it's all kind of searchable, indexed. If you're reading an entry and you see a name, hit that name and it'll take you to all of their entries. But they just cite and source the main kind of central original documents.
Right.
So whether that's a New York Times report or some congressional report. And just the same, that I was saying about the mainstream media, historycommons.org doesn't lay it out and say, Dick Cheney did it or, any of these kind of specific things. They just kind of lay it out and say, well, here's all the documentation that's all publicly available. You can kind of make up your own mind and do your own research.
And that's kind of what you have to do. I mean, everyone who's listening, I'm sorry to say, but you can't just, absorb news the way you absorb your favorite TV show. You've got, if you want to know what's going on, you've got to basically spend a couple hours online each day at least, reading original documents, going to the source of the material, and making your own decision. And again, I think through the years, I said that 9/11 was the event that got me into this area. And of course, my question was, let's see the video of the plane hitting the Pentagon. Now, nearly 9 years out, over the last, half of that time, it seemed as though 9/11 research was going into this area. And even when, people say 9/11 truth, to a lot of folks, that means, oh yeah, you think the buildings were blown up. Right.
That's the end all be all of any of the questions about 9/11. And for me, through the years, seeing that, it's like, wow, this seems to be becoming the main topic of 9/11. So anytime they would, the talking heads would have anybody on, that's all they would ever want to talk about. And for me, it's like, oh, as long as they can keep the discussion in this realm of what are essentially going to have to be speculative things.
Right.
because all that stuff's gone.
We're going to take a break now. We'll be back with more from James Evan Pilato right after this. Johnson Tattoo Studio is a family business that's kept the Johnson name in the Detroit area tattoo trade since 1965. We are currently operated by second-generation tattooist and body piercer Roscoe Johnson.